Hey Curious Sippers, I sincerely wish that none of you have to face the loss of a loved one in such a sudden and tragic way as the one that Vanessa Bryant, her daughters, and all the family and friends of Kobe Bryant did, and the other passengers who lost their lives in that infamous accident on January 26th. Like as if the suffering that Vanessa went through was not enough, now it turns out that the departure of Kobe and Gigi was nobody's fault but theirs. At least that was the response they received to the lawsuit that they had filed against the company in charge of the transportation of the former NBA player and the other passengers. To find out what's going on, hit the bell and the subscription button and stay with me till the very end of the video to get all the latest details. As the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. As if all the hardship Vanessa Bryant has already had to endure since the death of her life partner and her beloved child Gigi wasn't enough, it seems like now she has to go through one more setback in life. But to better understand what I'm talking about, unfortunately, it's necessary to go back to that dark day of a Sunday, January 26th. Even with all the mourning, it did not prevent Vanessa from demanding justice because it seems that the accident could have been avoided, or at least that's what we all believed. We say this because on the day of the celebration of Kobe and Gianna's life, Vanessa Bryant's lawyers filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the company that operated the helicopter that crashed. By the way, speaking of the tribute, something has just been announced which for many might be somewhat confusing. And according to the prestigious sports chain ESPN, the Mamba Sports Academy has decided to remove the word Mamba from the name of the institution. You might be thinking, but why? How are they going to pay tribute to the former player by removing his name? And according to them, it's more appropriate to put Kobe in another Hall of Fame to really respect his legacy. The announcement was made by Chad Faulkner, the Academy's founder and CEO himself, who said the following: "Today, with the respect for an unparalleled legacy, the Academy will retire the Mamba in the Mamba Sports Academy name to raise it to the rafters where it belongs. Our beliefs and thoughts are that Kobe is one of one. Mamba is one of one, and with that, as we carry on as the Sports Academy, it's more appropriate to put Kobe in another Hall of Fame, if you will, and to really respect a legacy that is really unrivaled, frankly, and let live on its own. We will continue to do the work we do. We were fortunate to learn from Kobe. We will carry on much of those learnings that we have in a respectful way. I still have no idea how they are respecting his name. Do you guys know anything? But let's go back to the lawsuit filed by Vanessa Bryant. The documents presented detailed that the pilot, Ara Zobayan, was careless and negligent by flying in cloudy conditions on January 26th. And despite the fact that Zobayan was one of the 9 people who died in the crash, Vanessa's lawsuit states that the pilot was negligent in 8 different ways, including failing to properly assess the weather, flying into conditions under which he couldn't navigate by sight, failing to avoid natural obstacles, and failing to properly and safely navigate the helicopter. According to the expert reports, the pilot, who by the way had the full confidence of Kobe, tried to fly in the middle of a dense fog that considerably limited the vision of the panorama. In fact, conditions were so bad that morning that even the Los Angeles police had to land several of their helicopters. The Daily Mail reports that Zobayan was already reprimanded by the Federal Aviation Administration in May of 2015 for violating flight rules. And the Island Express company that hired him has had at least 3 previous helicopter crashes since 1985, 2 of which were fatal according to the National Transportation Safety Board. But, well, also something that is important to mention is that despite knowing the multiple dangers involved in flying, Kobe preferred to fly by helicopter because he could get home from basketball practices faster and spend more time with his family. In addition to the lawsuit, Vanessa Bryant and her agent Rob Pelinka decided to file a request to add Capri, the youngest daughter of Vanessa and Kobe, to the former player's trust. And according to these documents, the trust was created by Kobe to provide for Vanessa and the kids back in 2003. This legal file was amended several times over the years, every time the couple welcomed a new child to their family. But unfortunately, the last amendment was in 2017, after the birth of Bianca, which means the trust leaves Capri out. But since Kobe's intention in creating that trust was to protect his wife and daughters, according to TMZ, it was pretty certain that a judge would allow the amendment. On Friday, the 28th of February, a report was published by the Los Angeles Times that revealed deputies in the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department may have shared graphic photos of human remains from the site of the January 26th helicopter crash. On Sunday, the 1st of March, Vanessa Bryant's legal team released a statement saying that the wife of the late NBA legend Kobe Bryant is absolutely devastated by the allegations that deputies shared Kobe's crash photos. After that, the police station made sure that all the images were removed. The truth is that Vanessa is not the only one who has decided to take legal actions, but she was also joined by some relatives of 4 others who were killed in the accident. They filed an electronic complaint with the Los Angeles Superior Court. In each case, exactly the same is alleged as in one of the lawsuits filed by Vanessa. That is to say, the blame is on the company Island Express Helicopters. One of the lawsuits was filed by 2 of the coach's sons, John Altobelli and his wife Carrie. Another of them corresponds to the husband and the 3 children of Christina Mauser, a member of Gigi's training team, and her companions. But what about the relatives of the pilot, Ara Zobayan? I mean, negligent or not, he too was one of the victims of the tragic accident. Well, no, they were not silent, and on May 8th, Bird Zobayan, a relative of the late pilot Ara Zobayan, also filed a kind of counterclaim. In the response to the document, you can read the following. Any injuries or damages to the plaintiffs and or their descendants were directly caused in full or in part by the negligence or the fault of the plaintiffs and or their descendant, including their knowing and voluntary encounter with the risks involved, and that this negligence was a substantial factor in causing their purported damages, for which this answering defendant bears no responsibility. And now it's time to find out the response to the lawsuit filed by the widow of the legend. It turns out that according to the information provided by TMZ, the Island Express company, which owns the helicopter in which Kobe, Gianna, and the other passengers lost their lives, ensures that both the legendary former NBA player and little Gigi were more than aware of the risks of flying in a helicopter that day, so the company has no responsibility. The exact answer reads as follows. Kobe Bryant and GB, which is Gigi, had actual knowledge of all the circumstances, particular dangers, and appreciation of the risks involved and the magnitude thereof, and proceeded to encounter at known risk and voluntarily assume the risk of the accident, injury, and thereby barring or reducing Vanessa's claim for damages. But, well, even if the response is cold and crude, we can understand that Kobe has been aware of the risks, but the question is, how aware can a 13-year-old girl be? Well, that is exactly the same question that both TMZ and other media outlets have. According to what they propose, if this had been the case, why is there no signed document that made it clear that each of the passengers gave their consent and accepted to travel in such conditions, being aware of the risks that imply? We're talking about the risk of losing your life here. If when someone decides to go bungee jumping, they make them sign papers, how could they not do it in such circumstances too? That answer simply does not make sense. Do you think so also? Well, it all doesn't end there, and according to the documents presented, everything was due to the will of the Lord of the Heavens himself. Island Express says that it's not responsible for the crash because it was an act of God. I mean, blinding fog is definitely an act of God. Well, the most faithful believers may perhaps agree, but not everyone falls for that. Even if it was an act of God as they said, it could have been prevented. In each and every one of these catastrophes of this type, when scratched enough, there's always all the circumstances and elements that should have been worked together to provoke them, and they might disagree, but at least in this case, everything seems to indicate that the accident could have been avoided if the warnings to fly in such adverse atmospheric circumstances had been paid attention to, and no one can do this better than the pilot and its team. I don't know, man. I am still speechless in this matter. No matter how much I think about it, this whole thing just doesn't make sense. So why don't you guys help me understand it better? Who do you think has acted negligently and irresponsibly despite knowing the risks of flying in such circumstances? The pilot or Kobe and the other passengers? Tell me what you think in the comments, and remember to please like and share and become part of our Curious Sips family by subscribing to our channel. And also, don't forget to check out our Instagram account. So see you guys next time.